Hello and welcome to Shadowline. I'm Anna.
And I'm Marcos, and today, Anna, we dive into a case that shocked Argentina, not just because of its brutality, but because of the betrayal involved.
Exactly, Marcos. What was supposed to be just an ordinary night, a quick outing, turned into a nightmare captured by security cameras. January 26th, 2024, Victoria, Argentina. A 23-year-old young woman runs desperately through the streets in the early hours of the morning, banging on doors, screaming for help.
Hours earlier, she was sleeping peacefully beside her 4-year-old son. What happened in that interval?
This is the Berenice Gonzálvez case, a story about a party that never existed and a friendship that proved fatal. Guys, due to the sensitive nature of this case and YouTube's content policies, we have adapted the narrative by changing certain terms or words and avoiding graphic descriptions of violence. We appreciate your understanding.
Let's get to the facts.
Picture the scene. A young woman runs through the streets at dawn, in complete despair, her body trembling, a lost look in her eyes. She knocks from door to door, begging for help from anyone who would listen. She is running from something only she can see. That would be the last time she was seen alive, Marcos. Hours later, Berenice Gonzálvez, the mother of a 4-year-old boy, would be declared dead.
Initially, the official version pointed to a psychotic break, perhaps caused by illicit substances. But the footage and the forensic reports told a much darker story. A mysterious party, violation, illicit substances, and the crucial role of someone the young woman trusted.
What happened to Berenice at that party? The answer is a web of vulnerability and cruelty.
Berenice Gonzálvez, born around 2001 in Victoria and Verrios, carried a difficult family history. Her childhood was marked by aggressive conflicts at home and her parents' turbulent separation. Berenice Gonzálvez was the daughter of Liliana and Luis Maria. There are few records regarding her early years, but as the investigations advanced, a pattern became clear. Her childhood was difficult, her adolescence even more complicated. The family lived in constant tension. Luis Maria faced serious problems with chemical dependency and instability. His behavior was aggressive, and he constantly humiliated his wife. Living together became unsustainable.
When Berenice was 15, her mother Liliana made a drastic decision. She left the house and separated from her husband. But the children stayed. Liliana later stated that, despite the physical separation, she never cut ties with the children. Still, the maternal absence at that critical moment left deep scars.
Berenice was trapped between a troubled father and an absent mother. At 15, a phase when teenagers need emotional structure, she had no one. The wounds accumulated, and no one around her was prepared or willing to help her heal them.
Alone and emotionally vulnerable, Berenice sought refuge in friendships that unfortunately led her down dangerous paths. It's a common pattern. Suffering youths seek connection wherever they can find it. The problem is that instead of protection, she found people who shared and encouraged destructive habits. That was how Berenice began to dive into the use of illicit substances. Excessive alcohol consumption and other harmful compounds became routine. It was a desperate attempt to silence the emotional pain she had carried since childhood.
At 18, she got pregnant. The child's father did not take responsibility. From the birth of her son, her life gained a new purpose. She dedicated herself entirely to the boy and fought to stay sober. She even enrolled in help programs and asked friends not to drag her back into addiction. Berenice did everything to provide for her son, working as a cleaner, a maid, or whatever honest work appeared. She was described as a beautiful, friendly young woman who easily won people's trust. But there was a shadow from the past that remained. Old friendships linked to substance use. One of these friendships was Zaira, 25 years old. The two had known each other since childhood and, according to Liliana, shared the same vices, although Zaira apparently had more control over her consumption. The tragedy began to take shape on the night of January 25, 2024. Around midnight,
Berenice received a crucial call from Zaira. Zaira wanted Berenice to accompany her to a party. She used the argument that she didn't feel safe going alone, which would turn out to be a cruel irony.
It's heartbreaking, Anna, because Berenice's reality at that moment was the total opposite of danger. It was pure domestic peace, lying there with her son. She refused at first, but Zaira insisted, called repeatedly, begging. The pressure worked. Berenice gave in, got her son settled, and left, closing the door to her home without knowing she would never return. The two went to a house that was not what one would expect from a party. Investigators confirmed it was, in fact, a gathering with very few people, including Esteban Daniel Castañeda, a 46-year-old man and the owner of the residence.
What is crucial here, Marcos, is that Zaira, who supposedly needed Berenice to feel safe, stayed at the location for an incredibly short time. Some reports speak of just 5 minutes. The friend who dragged her to the party left her alone with the host, Castañeda. What happened inside that house during the first few hours remains partially obscure, but forensic evidence reveals a brutal scenario. Berenice consumed, or was forced to consume, a mixture of heavy narcotics. Argentine prosecutors believe that Berenice was placed in a state of extreme vulnerability following the use of these substances. Security cameras show that, at a certain point in the early morning, Berenice managed to leave the house. She was visibly altered, stumbling, bumping into walls, doubling back on her own steps. Her behavior clearly indicated she was under the heavy influence of substances. Then comes the scene that shattered the family. Zaira appears behind Berenice, catches up to her, and instead of helping her leave, she leads her friend back inside the house, back to the place that was destroying her.
This moment, captured by the cameras, became the key evidence. It wasn't just a failure to render aid, it was an active act of leading her back into a risky situation.
It is disturbing. She intercepted Berenice's only chance of escape.
Around 6 a.m. on Saturday, January 26th, neighbors began calling the police. There was a completely altered young woman running through the streets, banging on doors, asking for help. Cameras recorded Berenice in a state of total panic. She ran erratically, trying to jump a fence as if fleeing from something invisible. The behavior was consistent with extreme paranoia induced by chemicals, possibly combined with acute psychological trauma.
Berenice ended up entering a school in the neighborhood. That was where the police found her, visibly out of her mind. Some reports mentioned signs of a psychotic break. Others spoke of seizures. The desperation was evident. She was rushed to the Salaberry Hospital. The team tried to stabilize her. When a nurse prepared to intubate her, Berenice reacted violently. She ripped out the medical devices, tried to break free from everyone, and fled the hospital. About 200 meters after running out, she fell decompensated on the street. She had to be rescued again. This time, the situation was critical: cardiac arrest. Doctors managed to reverse the initial condition, but due to the severity, they decided to transfer her to a better-equipped hospital.
While Berenice fought for her life in the hospital, her mother Liliana received a call from Zaira. The friend informed her that Berenice was hospitalized. When Liliana asked what had happened, Zaira replied with a vague phrase, "For the same reason as always," an allusion to old addictions. When Liliana arrived at the hospital, it was too late. Berenice had been diagnosed with brain death followed by cardiorespiratory arrest. In the early hours of Saturday, January 27, 2024, Berenice Gonzálvez passed away. Initially, there was talk of self-inflicted injuries and excessive consumption of narcotics, but forensic exams revealed a much more complex scenario. Injuries consistent with intimate violation were identified. The body showed marks of aggression, bruises and scratches on the head, abdomen, and private areas.
Liliana didn't hesitate when questioned. She pointed directly at Zaira. She said her daughter had gone out to the party with her and suspected that Zaira had placed Berenice in a situation from which she could not escape. And a mother's instinct rarely fails Marcos. Liliana knew, deep down, that there was something very wrong with this story. Justice officials initiated an immediate investigation. Several witnesses were heard. Zaira was called to testify. She confirmed she had taken Berenice to the party, but tried to distance herself from suspicion. According to her, her stay at the location had been very brief, just 5 minutes.
But that wasn't the story the security cameras and witnesses told. Zaira was seen running through the streets near the location, interacting with Berenice and other people. Investigators calculated that Berenice spent between 7 and 8 minutes asking for help before being attended to. During the testimony, Zaira began to contradict herself. Here, something legally important happens. She was initially called as a witness, but when the contradictions piled up, the prosecutor interrupted and changed her status to accused. When someone is the witness, they cannot remain silent. They have to answer everything. But when they become an accused suspect, they gain the right to remain silent.
The justice system ordered searches at the house on Castan Italia Street. Esteban Daniel Castañeda was detained. 3 cell phones were seized at the residence and sent for forensic analysis. The goal was to check messages, audio, video, or any record connecting Esteban to Berenice that morning. Zaira was placed in preventative detention, accused of facilitating the meeting between Berenice and Esteban, possibly in exchange for narcotics, in addition to perjury. Esteban was accused of violation with a consummated act, causing grave damage to the victim's physical and emotional integrity, in addition to supplying substances that led to death.
In the interrogation, Esteban denied all charges. He presented justifications and tried to push away any responsibility. The prosecution, led by Ivan Yedro, stated they have a strong hypothesis that Berenice was intoxicated with a narcotic mixture that left her in a state of extreme vulnerability and exaltation, being violated in a context of inability to defend herself. The focus of the accusation is the exploitation of her vulnerability.
On the morning of Saturday, January 27th, the community of Victoria took to the streets. There was a demonstration in the main square with signs and banners demanding justice. One of Berenice's uncles declared that the family would do everything in their power to see the case clarified. Prosecutors decreed 90 days of preventative detention for Esteban and Zaira. Investigations continued. They even investigated 6 other people who might have participated in the events.
In March 2024, the preventative detentions of Esteban and Zaira were relaxed. Both began awaiting the progress of the case in freedom, though with restrictions: prohibited from approaching the family or witnesses, required to maintain a fixed address, and obligated to communicate any changes to the public prosecutor's office. The decision sparked outrage. The community and organizations linked to women's rights criticized the slowness. No one accepted the idea that a young woman had been violated and killed in brutal circumstances while the suspects waited in freedom.
Today, in 2025, more than a year after Berenice's death, the process has not yet concluded. The 2 main suspects remain linked to the case, awaiting trial. Authorities claim that essential forensic reports and documents are still missing to consolidate the accusation. There is a debate about framing the case as femicide. Lawyers are awaiting full results from the forensics to define how each individual involved will be formally charged. Liliana initiated legal actions to obtain custody of her grandson, the 4-year-old boy, to protect him and ensure he grows up far from that circle of violence.
The Berenice Gonzálvez case remains open in the Argentine justice system. A young woman left home with a friend. Something in that house went completely out of control. She was attacked under the influence of multiple substances. The exams don't lie. As of now, there is no definition on when the trial will occur. The case awaits complete expert documentation. Esteban and Zaira remain free with restrictions.
We know the crime was brutal, but using the trust of a years-long friendship to set a trap, that requires a different level of coldness. This case leaves us with many questions, and I want to know your opinion. First, about Zaira's mind. Do you think she was manipulated by third parties? Or did she always wear this best friend mask to hide who she really was? This leads us to the signs. Were there red flags that Berenice ignored, or was the trap just too perfect? And finally, the justice system. Was the ruling compatible with the magnitude of this brutal betrayal? Leave your theories and opinions here in the comments. Let's discuss this. Thank you for joining us on this case today. Leave in the comments which case you want us to investigate and tell you about in the next episode.
I'll be keeping an eye on the comments too, Anna. It's hard not to have a strong opinion on this. And if you value the analysis and investigation work we do here at Shadowline, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Your support is fundamental for us to continue bringing the truth to light. Remember, we can't always change history, but we can ensure that the memory of the victims is not forgotten. Until the next episode.
See you soon.